Chapter 1. A Nation Reborn. It was the pride of the Italian line, a floating palace of art, luxury, and engineering. The SS Andrea Doria was more than an ocean liner, carrying passengers across the Atlantic. She was a statement to the world. Less than a decade after the devastation of World War II, Italy sought to rebuild not only its cities and industries, but also its reputation. Every polished brass railing, every marble staircase, and every elegant lounge aboard the Andrea Doria reflected a nation's determination to rise from the ashes of war. Yet, on the night of the 25th of July 1956, just hours from the lights of New York City, this masterpiece would become the center of one of the most tragic maritime disasters of the 20th century. A collision hidden inside a wall of fog would leave dozens dead, hundreds fighting for survival, and a ship once celebrated as the safest afloat resting forever beneath the Atlantic Ocean. This is the story of ambition, innovation, human error, and the final voyage of the SS Andrea Doria. To understand why the sinking of the Andrea Doria captured the attention of the entire world, we must first return to a very different Italy. In 1945, the Second World War had finally come to an end, but victory brought little comfort to the Italian people. Cities lay in ruins, factories had been destroyed, and the country's once proud merchant fleet had suffered devastating losses. Ships that had once connected Europe to the Americas had either been sunk during the war or seized as reparations. Italy faced not only an economic crisis, but also a crisis of national identity. The challenge ahead was immense: to rebuild a nation that had lost much of its infrastructure, its international prestige, and the confidence of its own people. The years that followed became known as the beginning of the Italian economic miracle. Industries slowly returned to life. Architects envisioned modern cities, and manufacturers once again began exporting Italian craftsmanship to the world. But among all these ambitions, one dream stood above the rest. Italy wanted to reclaim its place on the North Atlantic, the busiest and most prestigious passenger route on Earth. Before commercial aviation became the preferred way to cross the ocean, traveling between Europe and North America by luxury liner was more than transportation. It was an experience reserved for diplomats, celebrities, wealthy businessmen, immigrants, and families seeking a new life. Every crossing was a showcase of national pride, and every great maritime nation competed to build ships that were larger, faster, safer, and more luxurious than those of their rivals. For Italy, this competition represented an opportunity to announce that it had returned to the world stage. The Italian line, officially known as Italia Società di Navigazione, envisioned a pair of magnificent ocean liners that would rival the finest vessels operated by Britain, France, and the United States. These ships would not simply carry passengers, they would carry the reputation of an entire nation across the Atlantic. One of those ships would bear a name deeply rooted in Italian history, Andrea Doria. Andrea Doria was one of the greatest admirals of the 16th century, remembered for his naval victories and his influence over the Republic of Genoa. Naming the new flagship after such a legendary figure was no coincidence. It connected Italy's glorious maritime past with its hopes for the future. From the very beginning, expectations surrounding the vessel were enormous. Construction began at the Ansaldo shipyard in Genoa, where thousands of workers dedicated years to bringing the ambitious project to life. Shipbuilders, engineers, electricians, carpenters, welders, and designers worked side by side, each contributing to what many believed would become the finest passenger liner Italy had ever produced. Unlike many ships built before the war, the Andrea Doria incorporated modern engineering principles designed to maximize both comfort and safety. Her hull was divided into watertight compartments intended to improve survivability in the event of an accident. Powerful stabilizers reduced rolling during rough seas, allowing passengers to enjoy a smoother voyage across the unpredictable Atlantic. Every major system reflected the latest advancements available during the early 1950s. But engineering alone would not define the Andrea Doria. She was also conceived as a masterpiece of Italian design. Rather than filling her interiors with heavy decorations reminiscent of earlier ocean liners, designers embraced a modern aesthetic inspired by contemporary Italian architecture. Bright public rooms welcomed natural light through expansive windows. Elegant lounges featured original works of art commissioned specifically for the ship. Sculptures, paintings, handcrafted furniture, and carefully selected materials transformed every public space into something resembling a floating museum. Passengers were not merely boarding a ship, they were stepping into a celebration of Italian culture. The dining rooms reflected the country's world-famous culinary traditions. Fine china, polished silverware, and carefully prepared meals offered guests an experience equal to the finest hotels on land. Large observation lounges allowed travelers to watch endless Atlantic sunsets in comfort, while spacious promenades encouraged peaceful evening walks beneath the stars. For children, dedicated play areas provided entertainment during the long crossing. There was even an outdoor swimming pool surrounded by comfortable deck chairs, creating the feeling of an elegant seaside resort despite being hundreds of miles from shore. The Andrea Doria was launched on the 16th of June, 1951, before a crowd of thousands gathered along the waterfront in Genoa. As tradition dictated, a ceremonial bottle of champagne was smashed against the hull before the massive vessel gracefully entered the water for the first time. Newspapers across Italy celebrated the launch as a symbol of national renewal. Photographs of the sleek white liner appeared around the world, and many observers praised her elegant profile, describing her as one of the most beautiful passenger ships ever constructed. Yet beauty alone could not guarantee success. Before carrying paying passengers, every major ocean liner had to undergo months of rigorous sea trials. Engineers tested engines at full power, navigators evaluated handling characteristics, and crews practiced emergency procedures under controlled conditions. These trials demonstrated impressive performance. The Andrea Doria handled predictably, maintained excellent stability, and achieved speeds suitable for regular North Atlantic service. Confidence in the ship continued to grow with every successful test. When she finally entered commercial service in January 1953, expectations were high. Her maiden voyage from Genoa to New York attracted worldwide attention. Crowds gathered at ports to witness Italy's new flagship arriving in style. Wealthy tourists booked luxurious first-class accommodations, while immigrants hoping to begin new lives in North America occupied tourist-class cabins. Despite their different backgrounds, all passengers shared the same experience of sailing aboard one of the world's most advanced ocean liners. During the next 3 years, the Andrea Doria completed crossing after crossing with remarkable reliability. Her officers earned respect for their professionalism, and passengers consistently praised the exceptional service provided by the crew. Travel magazines highlighted the ship's sophisticated interiors, outstanding cuisine, and comfortable accommodations. Many considered the Andrea Doria proof that Italy had successfully returned to the forefront of international passenger travel. By the summer of 1956, she had become much more than a commercial vessel. She represented confidence, prestige, national achievement. No one could imagine that her next voyage would become the last. On the 17th of July, 1956, the Andrea Doria departed Genoa once again, beginning another routine crossing toward New York. Families waved goodbye from the docks as the giant liner slowly left the harbor. Crew members carried out familiar departure procedures while passengers settled into their cabins, unaware that history was quietly unfolding around them. For most aboard, this was simply another luxurious Atlantic crossing. Business meetings awaited some in America. Others looked forward to vacations, family reunions, or the excitement of arriving in New York for the first time. The Atlantic, however, had other plans. As the Andrea Doria steamed westward across the ocean, another passenger liner was making her own journey in the opposite direction. Smaller, newer, and carrying far fewer passengers, she had departed New York, bound for Europe. Her name was Stockholm. Neither captain knew that within days, their ships would meet in conditions where even the most advanced technology of the era would prove tragically insufficient. Chapter 2, The Atlantic, closes in. On the morning of the 25th of July 1956, life aboard the Andrea Doria unfolded exactly as it had on dozens of previous Atlantic crossings. The ship had already traveled thousands of miles from Genoa and was now approaching the final stage of her journey. In less than 24 hours, passengers would see the skyline of New York City rise above the horizon. For many aboard, the excitement was almost impossible to hide. Some were returning home after visiting family in Europe. Others were beginning entirely new lives in America. A few were wealthy tourists who had spent the crossing enjoying every luxury the ship could offer. Whatever their destination, nearly everyone believed the voyage's most dangerous days were already behind them. The atmosphere reflected that confidence. Breakfast was served in elegant dining rooms where sunlight poured through wide windows overlooking the calm Atlantic. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, while conversations drifted from travel plans to business meetings and family reunions. On the open decks, passengers relaxed in deck chairs beneath the cool ocean breeze, reading newspapers, writing postcards, or simply watching the endless blue water stretch toward the horizon. Children chased one another across the promenade, while photographers captured memories that families expected to treasure for decades. For the crew, the day followed a familiar rhythm. Engineers monitored the massive steam turbines deep below the waterline, ensuring every system continued operating smoothly. Stewards prepared cabins for arrival, knowing passengers would soon begin packing their belongings. Officers on the bridge reviewed weather reports, navigational charts, and radar information as the ship steadily closed the remaining distance to the American coast. Nothing appeared unusual. The Andrea Doria was performing exactly as she had been designed to do. Yet far beyond the passenger's view, conditions across the North Atlantic were beginning to change. As warm, humid air flowing northward met colder currents surrounding the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, dense fog started forming over vast stretches of ocean. Mariners had known this region for centuries. It was one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world and one of its most unpredictable. Thick fog could appear with astonishing speed, reducing visibility from miles to only a few hundred feet within minutes. Even experienced captains treated these waters with respect. Throughout the afternoon, weather reports confirmed what many officers already expected. Fog banks lay ahead along the approaches to New York. Such reports were hardly unusual. Ocean liners encountered fog regularly, especially during summer crossings. Ships were equipped with radar, maintained strict watch-keeping procedures, and sounded fog signals to alert nearby vessels. Modern technology, many believed, had greatly reduced the dangers that had haunted sailors for generations. Aboard the Andrea Doria, Captain Piero Calamai studied the latest reports carefully. Calamai was no inexperienced sailor. By 1956, he had spent decades at sea and had earned a reputation as one of Italy's most respected merchant captains. Calm, disciplined, and deeply committed to his responsibilities, he had safely commanded numerous voyages across the Atlantic. To those serving under him, he represented professionalism and confidence. Few officers in the Italian merchant fleet possessed more experience navigating crowded shipping routes. As evening approached, visibility began to deteriorate, exactly as forecast. The horizon slowly disappeared behind an expanding wall of white mist. Soon the ocean itself seemed to vanish, leaving only the endless sound of waves striking the hull. The Andrea Doria entered the fog at cruising speed, relying increasingly on radar and the skill of her bridge officers to monitor surrounding traffic. According to maritime practice, lookouts intensified their watch while the ship's whistle echoed across the Atlantic at regular intervals, warning unseen vessels of her presence. Radar operators continuously scanned the glowing screen for nearby contacts. Every few minutes, officers measured the movement of other ships, estimating their speed, direction, and the closest point at which their courses might intersect. Several miles away, another vessel was approaching from the opposite direction. The Swedish American Line's passenger liner, Stockholm, had departed New York only hours earlier, beginning her eastbound voyage toward Europe. Compared with the elegant Andrea Doria, the Stockholm was considerably smaller and less luxurious. Built only a few years earlier, she focused on efficiency rather than grandeur. Her passengers enjoyed comfortable accommodations, but the ship lacked the lavish interiors and artistic elegance that had made the Italian liner famous. Her captain, Gunnar Nordenson, had temporarily left the bridge for dinner, leaving navigation in the hands of Third Officer Johan Ernst Carstens Johansson, a capable young officer responsible for maintaining course through the increasingly dense fog. Like the crew aboard the Andrea Doria, Stockholm's officers relied heavily on radar to identify nearby vessels hidden beyond visual range. At first, everything appeared routine. Radar detected a large contact several miles ahead. The unidentified vessel maintained what seemed to be a safe distance. Its movement appeared predictable. Its speed seemed normal. To both ships, the radar picture suggested there would be no danger as long as each vessel continued interpreting the information correctly. But radar in the 1950s was not the sophisticated technology sailors rely on today. It provided remarkable advantages over visual navigation, yet it also demanded careful interpretation. Small errors in reading another ship's course or speed could quickly create dangerous misunderstandings. Radar did not make decisions. It merely displayed information, leaving human judgment to determine what that information actually meant. On both bridges, officers examined their radar screens and reached conclusions they believed were correct. Tragically, those conclusions were different. The Andrea Doria's bridge team believed the approaching vessel would pass safely to starboard. Stockholm's officers believed the Italian liner would pass safely to their own starboard as well. In simple terms, each ship expected the other to move in the opposite direction. Neither crew realized they were preparing for the same side of the passing. With every passing minute, the distance between the two ocean liners continued shrinking. 10 miles, 8 miles, 6. The fog outside remained so dense that neither bridge crew could see beyond the immediate glow of their own navigation lights. The ocean had become a featureless white void where only radar hinted at what lay ahead. Inside the Andrea Doria's bridge, officers continued monitoring the target carefully. Nothing seemed to indicate immediate danger. Similar encounters occurred regularly in busy shipping lanes. Modern radar, experienced officers believed, made such situations manageable. Aboard the Stockholm, confidence remained equally strong. Neither bridge sounded a general alarm. Neither captain believed disaster was only minutes away. Below decks, passengers enjoyed one final evening at sea. Some gathered in lounges, listening to live music. Others played cards or shared drinks with new friends. Children slept peacefully in their cabins while parents finished packing luggage for the following morning's arrival. The engines continued driving both ships steadily through the darkness. Neither group of passengers knew another vessel was approaching through the fog. Neither could imagine that somewhere beyond the white silence, two massive ocean liners were unknowingly steering toward the same patch of ocean. Every second now mattered. Every radar observation, Every course adjustment, every assumption, the margin for correcting a mistake was rapidly disappearing. And then, for the very first time that night, the fog began to reveal distant lights. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to discover more hidden secrets, forgotten history, and unbelievable true events, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the next video on your screen. Until next time, stay curious.